Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to a deep dive into your sources. Today we're looking at excerpts from Optimize Your Brain, A Guide to 3D Living. And right off the bat, it hits you with a pretty powerful idea. It's saying that understanding and working with your brain chemistry, it's not just about performance hacks. It's really positioned as a pathway to a richer, more meaningful life. More control, more happiness, more depth.
Exactly. That's what really jumps out from these sources. It feels less like your standard self-help thing and, well, more like a guide to fundamentally shifting how you perceive reality. It introduces this idea of moving from what it calls 1D living to 3D living. And the core argument is that unlocking your brain chemistry is sort of the key to making that shift.
Right, this 1D versus 3D idea. It's central, and honestly, it makes you stop and think. The source suggests most people are kind of stuck in this 1D mode. What does that actually look like, according to the book?
Well, it's painted as a very reactive existence. Think about those times when words just spill out without much processing. Like the source gives examples, a coworker just sighing, "Oh, this sucks." Or maybe a team leader snapping, "Why are you so annoying?"
Okay. It's not much thought behind it.
Exactly. It's described as live 'em on autopilot, not really engaging the full capacity of your mind, not stepping back to observe yourself. You're seeing life through this very narrow, almost instinctual lens.
Like that lion and rabbit analogy
Yeah.
the source uses.
Yeah.
Just pure instinct, no reflection.
Precisely. No conscious choice happening in that moment. And the book draws a really sharp contrast between that and using language deliberately, like a precious tool where you actually engage your brain before you speak or act.
And it throws out a pretty stark statistic, doesn't it? Something like 90%.
Yeah, it claims around 90% of people are operating in this 1D mode, just caught up in daily stress, maybe not fully feeling empathy, not thinking deeply about their own lives or, the bigger picture.
90%. Wow. That definitely gives you pause. Okay, so if that's the baseline, the 1D, what's this 3D living it's advocating for?
So 3D living, according to the source, is all about taking back the reins. Gaining conscious control over your body and your mind. It means seeing that bigger picture, boosting what it calls metacognition.
Thinking about your thinking.
Exactly. That ability to observe your own thought processes. It's about moving towards a state of, intentionality.
Can you give an example from the source? How does that actually play out differently in a real moment?
Sure. The book uses the example of just feeling off.
Yeah.
Having a bad moment. In 1D, you might just slump and say, ugh, I feel awful, or I'm so tired, full stop. But in 3D, you'd recognize that feeling and maybe think, okay, hold on. Maybe my dopamine levels are low right now. What's a specific action I know I can take based on this understanding to help boost it?
Okay. So it's moving from just passively experiencing the feeling
Right.
to actively understanding its potential chemical roots and then taking a strategic step.
Exactly. It's a shift from complaint to informed self-management.
That feels like a really significant shift. Not just feeling better, but gaining this deeper insight into yourself, your own internal state, and your power to influence it. It sounds like the book is trying to guide people who feel stuck, seeing only the ground, to finally look up and see the moon, as the source puts it. It's about expanding your whole perspective, what life can be.
And the mechanism it focuses on for making this leap is really grounded in biology, specifically understanding and optimizing key neurotransmitters in the brain.
Okay, so this is where the science comes in, connecting these big ideas about life meaning to the actual chemicals sloshing around in our heads. The source highlights three main ones, right? Dopamine, serotonin, and acetylcholine.
That's right. Dopamine is presented as the sort of motivation and reward chemical. It's what gets you going towards goals and gives you that buzz when you achieve something. The book notes that if you're feeling sluggish, unmotivated, maybe struggling with sticking to a diet, planning actions that are known dopamine boosters can help. Things like setting a small, clear goal or, hitting the gym.
And the cold showers. That was surprising.
Yeah. It mentions morning cold showers specifically as a way to get a quick dopamine hit for focus and alertness. Wakes you right up, apparently.
Definitely unexpected and a guide aiming for deeper living. Okay, what about serotonin?
Serotonin is framed as the rest hormone. It's linked to feeling grounded, stable, having that sense of well-being. And the source is pretty direct here. Constantly burning the midnight oil, sacrificing sleep. That directly tanks your serotonin, which impacts performance, stability, everything.
Makes sense.
But on the other hand, really simple things, like getting some sunlight first thing in the morning. That's said to trigger serotonin. Helps you feel productive, alive. And it also emphasizes environment. Moving somewhere quieter, maybe near nature birds, trees, is linked to boosting both endorphins and serotonin. leading to more stability, more happiness.
So it's not just internal dials we're turning, but how our surroundings interact with those dials.
Yeah.
Interesting. And the third one was acetylcholine.
Yep, acetylcholine. This one's tied to focus, concentration, and crucially, the ability to actually start a task and get into that state of flow. The source explicitly connects it to Mahali's Csikszentmihalyi's work on flow.
Ah, right. That feeling of being totally absorbed, losing track of time.
That's the one. The book uses a really relatable example, cleaning your room.
Yes, the dread is real.
Exactly. You might dread starting it, feel that resistance. But once you actually begin, acetylcholine kicks in, helps you focus, and you can find yourself getting into a rhythm, entering that flow state. Suddenly it's not so bad, maybe even satisfying. It's like the chemical bridge from wanting to do something to actually doing it sustainedly.
Okay, so the core idea is these feelings we have, motivation, stability, focus, they have a real chemical basis. And crucially, we can influence these chemicals through specific, often simple actions. Which leads us nicely into the practical strategies the book lays out for, actually living in 3D.
Right. And what's quite striking is how accessible a lot of them are. Take sunlight, for instance. The source doesn't just say, get sun. It suggests specific habits, like open your curtains the moment you wake up and actively avoid grabbing your phone first thing.
Just lie there.
Yeah, just lie there for a minute. Consciously think about your day. It's presented as a way to let your brain gently optimize itself to wake up naturally. It uses this image of watching a sunrise from a beach house, that feeling of natural energy from the light.
Okay, I can picture that. And it spends a surprising amount of time on showers.
It really does, and it draws a clear distinction. A cold shower in the morning. That activates your sympathetic nervous system, your get-up-and-go system, boosts focus, dopamine. But a hot shower too close to bedtime, say within 2 hours, the source argues that raises your core body temperature, which can actually block melatonin production.
Melatonin, the sleep hormone.
Exactly. So that relaxing hot shower might actually interfere with the deep sleep you need for your brain to consolidate memories, clear out waste, basically to optimize. Bad sleep means low dopamine the next day, a rough start. It's a small habit with potentially big biochemical ripples.
Definitely makes you rethink the evening routine. And going back to environment, it sounds like the source is pretty adamant about nature and quiet time.
Absolutely. It frames being near nature, hearing birds, seeing greenery, and avoiding constant screen time, finding moments of actual quiet as vital. These aren't just nice-to-haves. The argument is they directly improve work efficiency, lower stress, and increase happiness by nudging those neurotransmitters in the right direction.
Constantly staring at your phone is basically framed as actively undermining this natural optimization process.
Which connects directly to the source's very strong stance on rest and balance, doesn't it? It seems to really push back against that hustle culture idea.
Oh, completely. It calls the idea that constant stress and overwork are necessary nonsense. It flat out says that lifestyle leads to burnout, often hitting people hard by their 40s, and presents this almost as a scientific certainty. It even provocatively suggests our evolutionary wiring might be better suited to something like 6 hours of focused work a day.
6 hours, that's different. It is. But the underlying message is clear. Achieving a genuine balance between work, rest, and exercise isn't a weakness or a luxury. It's presented as the only sustainable path to living longer, happier, and more meaningfully. It points to examples like entrepreneurs who cash out early, live simply, and just seem younger, happier. The implication is that true wealth lies in that balance, not just endless accumulation.
That really resonates with the idea of a deeper, more meaningful life. It's not about maximizing output every second, but finding a rhythm that actually sustains you. And part of that rhythm, the source says, involves downtime, even sensory deprivation.
Yeah, it emphasizes that periods of disconnection are crucial for happiness. It actually suggests trying to dedicate maybe one day a week, if you can manage it, to just unplugging, no phone, minimal noise, just being with yourself. It's about giving your brain a chance to process, integrate, and recharge without that constant barrage of external input.
Sounds challenging, but potentially very powerful, like clearing the slate to allow for that 3D reflection. The source also talks about the biology of human connection, which is fascinating.
It really was. It uses that very relatable scenario.
Yeah.
A parent, maybe married, coming home totally wiped out from work. And it suggests simple things can trigger significant biological shifts. Just taking a quiet shower alone can help engage the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system, helping you calm down.
Okay, that makes sense. But then it adds another layer.
Right. It describes this scenario where Maybe while you're in that calming shower, your kid unexpectedly bursts in and playfully splashes you with a water gun. That spontaneous, joyful connection, even though it's an interruption, is said to also activate the parasympathetic system. It helps you calm down, recharge, not just mentally but biologically. It highlights the restorative power of those moments.
Wow. So even those unexpected, slightly chaotic moments of connection have a physiological benefit. That reframes everyday family life quite a bit.
It does. The source isn't necessarily pushing marriage for everyone, but it uses these examples to show the profound biological value embedded in close human connections.
And alongside rest and connection, the source positions exercise as basically non-negotiable, especially as you get older.
Yes, particularly from your 30s onward. It's not just about muscles and cardio. It's explicitly linked to maintaining motivation, tying back to acetylcholine, and interestingly, preventing your brain from interpreting inactivity as a biological signal to start shutting down. The source connects this inactivity signal to the aging process itself. Exercise is framed as vital for brain vitality throughout life.
Okay, so we have these neurotransmitters, these practical strategies. How does the source tie all this back together to actually achieving goals and finding that sustained motivation we all look for?
It outlines this really interesting cycle, heavily involving dopamine and acetylcholine. It's presented almost like a 7-step process, though maybe experienced more fluidly. 1, you set a goal. Could be anything the source uses, aiming for 1 million YouTube subscribers, as an example. Just setting it sparks some dopamine.
Gives you that initial buzz.
Exactly. 2, you visualize success. Really imagine achieving it. That pumps out more dopamine, strengthening the drive. 3, you act. Take concrete steps. This is where acetylcholine comes in, helping you get started and potentially find that flow state as you work.
Okay, goal, visualize, act.
4, when you hit the goal, you celebrate wildly. The source emphasizes this. Don't just tick a box, really feel it. The brain rewards this with a big dopamine rush. Think of athletes going crazy after a win. There's a biological purpose to that intensity.
Celebration is fuel. I like that.
Then, 5, you use that positive feeling, that dopamine reward, to set a bigger goal. It creates this upward spiral of motivation and achievement.
It's like a built-in reward loop driving you forward. And the emphasis on celebration feels key. The source says you really can't overdo praise for yourself or others.
It presents it as absolutely essential. It's the reinforcement that tells your brain, yes, this effort was worth it, let's do more. And you see echoes of this in the examples provided. Oprah Winfrey, known for visualization and celebrating small wins. Michael Jordan, famous for his intense drive, constantly setting new benchmarks and celebrating championships with raw emotion.
But crucially, the book doesn't just leave it with celebrities.
Yeah.
It brings it down to earth with that example of the single parent, right? Working 2 jobs.
Yes, and that example is powerful. It shows how someone in really challenging circumstances can apply these brain optimization principles, maybe forcing themselves to get that morning sunlight, taking a quick cold shower even when exhausted, setting tiny daily goals like make it through the shift with a positive interaction. And gradually, by consciously managing their neurochemistry, they start to shift their internal state. They feel more in control, find moments of genuine happiness, and start to see meaning within the struggle, within the grind itself.
That transformation from just surviving to finding fulfillment in the difficulty, that feels like the essence of moving from 1D to 3D living.
Exactly. And what's really thought-provoking is how the source then subtly broadens the scope, touching on those really big questions about life, like aging and immortality. It acknowledges the biological perspective, referencing Richard Dawkins and the selfish gene, the idea that we age biologically, partly to make way for genetic evolution.
Yeah.
Our bodies have a planned obsolescence, in a sense.
Puts our individual lives in a vast biological timeline.
It does, but then it makes this crucial pivot. It observes that people who stay active, engaged, who keep working or exercising or learning after traditional retirement age, they often seem to age more slowly, stay sharper longer. The implication is that prolonged inactivity or disengagement might actually send signals to the brain that, well, its job is done. Time to shut down.
So optimizing your brain, staying active, staying engaged, it's not just about performing better day to day. The source hints it might actually influence the aging trajectory and help maintain a sense of purpose that goes beyond just passing on genes.
That seems to be the implication. It suggests that living fully in 3D is about engaging intensely with life across its entire span, potentially pushing back against those purely biological shutdown signals through continued purpose and activity.
Okay, so pulling all these threads together from the sources.
Yeah.
The core message from Optimize Your Brain seems to be this. It's offering a practical, science-informed path away from just reacting to life, the 1D state, towards a much more intentional, fulfilling, and deeply aware 3D's existence. And the way in is by understanding and consciously influencing our own brain function through these daily actions.
Precisely. Its position is achievable not through vague philosophies, but through concrete steps grounded in neurochemistry.
And the source material suggests it's getting traction, described as life-changing, highly rated, applicable not just to success markers like making money, but more fundamentally to living better, feeling happier, finding that deeper meaning.
Yeah, and it clearly builds on or resonates with ideas from other influential works mentioned in your sources, like The Power of Habits and Atomic Habits, or The Immersion of Flow described by Csikszentmihalyi. Together they form a compelling toolkit for living more deliberately.
So ultimately, this deep dive today isn't just about sharing some productivity tips. It's exploring a framework presented in your sources where understanding your own biology might unlock a profound level of control. Control not just over tasks, but over your internal state, your perspective, your resilience, and ultimately your capacity to experience life with, well, more vibrancy and depth. It's about shifting from just getting through the day to really truly living it.
It really offers a path to get off autopilot, doesn't it? To consciously shape your inner world so you can navigate the outer world with more awareness, more purpose, and ultimately more fulfillment.
So maybe here's a thought to leave you with. Is optimizing your brain, as these sources lay out, truly holds the power to reshape how you perceive and interact with everything from a simple morning routine to your long-term sense of purpose and happiness? What's one single, small, conscious step you could experiment with today just to start seeing your own life and it be just a little more 3D?